the deep state playbook is once again in operation, and exactly what happened, precisely to the point what happened in Bangladesh, is now happening on the streets of Kathmandu. And I want you to look at these visuals, and I want you to remember what happened in Kathmandu, in Dhaka. I want you to remember the images from Bangladesh, and then juxtapose them from the images of Kathmandu. And I want you to remember once again everything I had said at that point of time about the deep state being in play. Ladies and gentlemen, it is dangerous if foreign countries try to overthrow elected governments. But it is even more dangerous if foreign companies want to overthrow elected governments. What is this protest that is burning Nepal all about? What are these Gen Z protesters protesting about in the first place? Who are they protesting for? Some American company, ladies and gentlemen, that refused to comply with the laws of their own country. American social media companies saying, we will not follow the rules of Nepal. We will do whatever we please. We will listen only to one man, and that man's name is Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, when you see the images from Nepal, I will in a moment rerun the images of Donald Trump sitting with the tech bros. And I will ask only one question. Who are the protesters fighting for? Are they fighting for this group of billionaires and trillionaires who only have favors to get from one man, Donald Trump? And if Donald Trump doesn't have his way, these American companies will do anything to push his own interests. Ladies and gentlemen, the so-called crisis in Nepal is simple. We can go back to the images of what happened in Nepal. The government of Nepal said that any social media company which is operating in Nepal has to register with the Nepalese government. They have to comply with the directives of the Nepal government, which is very simple. They have to establish a local presence. They have to appoint some contact persons. They have to adhere to local regulations. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. In India too, we require these social media platforms to appoint local grievance officers, publish compliance reports, store data locally under the Information Technology Rules 2021. Meta, Google and X have complied, establishing Indian offices and officers. In Nepal, out of the 26 apps which have been banned because they are refusing to comply, 17 are American, which means they are developed or owned by America-based companies, including Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, WhatsApp, Meta, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Snapchat. All these people are coming together and saying, why do we need to register? It's a battle between them and the government of Nepal. You would expect the Gen Z of Nepal to say, we have a nation-first sentiment, we have pride for our own country. Of course, these American companies should register with our own government authorities, like they do in America, by the way, because these same social media companies do comply with US regulations. In America, they are subject to laws like Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which means the American government doesn't give them a free-for-all. But these companies want a free-for-all in Nepal, so they dare the Nepalese government. And surprisingly, in this battle, thousands of young Nepalese Gen Z go out into the streets to protest against their government's move to ask American social media companies to follow the rules. Then there are clashes. And young people not aware of possibly all the details go and vandalize the Nepal parliament. The police fires thousands of rounds, and that snowballs into a massive protest, exactly like it happened in Bangladesh. Let's run the images of Bangladesh, ladies and gentlemen, and ask yourself, if you're watching this tonight, what on earth is going on? It happens in Bangladesh one day, the government is overthrown. It happens in Nepal the other day, the government is on the brink. What is the guarantee that some elements will not try to do this kind of dangerous anarchic stuff here in India? What is happening in and around the subcontinent? It happened in Sri Lanka. It happened in Bangladesh. And now before our very eyes, the same anarchy aimed at an overthrow of the elected regime is happening in Nepal. I believe this is the deep state of America sending a message to India at a time when we are battling Trump, at a time when the entire world, from Africa to Australia, stands with India and says, Narendra Modi has done the right thing by taking on the Trump government with quiet dignity and a sense of national purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, is this the deep state sending a message to the Modi government? That fall in line, or we could do what we have done in Bangladesh, what we could have been doing right now in Nepal, that we could do the same thing in India. Remember, similar attempts have been made in India. Rahul Gandhi keeps peddling these lies on social media, parading names like Minta Devi. His vote chori narrative gets completely exposed. He refuses to sign an affidavit to back up his allegations, but he talks about fires, and he talks about fires starting in Bihar and spreading all over. Ladies and gentlemen, just hear this.
Wonderful spark, which is, I can see, there is a fire that is starting in Bihar. And you will see I'm inviting all the senior leaders to come and see this fire because it is catching fire. मतलब वो आग फैल रही है, उसको रोका नहीं जा सकता. वो सारों के मुंह में है, सारे लोग वहां पे बच्चे, मतलब 4 साल के बच्चे, वोट चोर चल रहा है.
Ladies and gentlemen, this man who is now holidaying in jeans shorts in Malaysia always speaks about a fire spreading. Why doesn't he speak about winning an election? He talks about starting a fire, spreading a fire, and watching a fire burn the entire country and smiles about it. And he says India is not a nation. It's but a union of states. Ladies and gentlemen, spreading fires is dangerous. Remember what happened during the Mandal Commission agitation? The whole country was torn apart. The Gen Z of that time was driven to the streets. There were immolations, and the politics of division left deep scars, which we have still not, ladies and gentlemen, recovered from. But as you watch the images from Nepal, please remember what happened in Bangladesh, and then go a few months back and remember what happened in Sri Lanka, and ask yourself the most elementary question: is it not possible that a foreign power inimical to the interests of the elected governments, which feels that those elected governments don't follow the American way, the American sway, could easily ignite the fires using Gen Z and social media? Ladies and gentlemen, remember what Congress party said, that what happened in Bangladesh can happen in India. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a very real possibility. Listen to this.
ऐसे परिस्थिति में हम ये भी कह सकते हैं कि जैसा कि शक पैदा हुआ लोगों के मन में बांग्लादेश में कि ये फ्री एंड फेयर इलेक्शन है क्या, वैसे ही शक यहाँ भी आने लगे हैं. वहाँ तो उभर गए हैं, लेकिन यहाँ भी वो शुरू हो गए हैं.
There are 3 elements: shak, or a sense of doubt, a social media campaign which is unstoppable, the use of the Gen Z to provoke the Gen Z and add them to the powder keg of a situation and then watch it explode. This is perhaps why Rahul Gandhi keeps saying a fire is spreading. I can see a fire. I can see a fire. The fire is going to spread. Who talks about his own country like that? Who talks about a situation where his country will be burned down? I condemn the words of Rahul Gandhi and the metaphors he tries to use, but I also remember he has leaders and councillors like Salman Khurshid who cannot but help comment that what happened in Bangladesh can happen in India. Listen to this.
What's happening in Bangladesh can happen here. It's just that Bangladesh is a concentration of much that we have in our country, and the spread in our country prevents things blowing up in the manner in which they've blown up in Bangladesh. But whatever is happening in Bangladesh is terrible.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you listen to Salman Khurshid, they're the Congress party, it almost a sense of hope. They hope that the fire spreads in India. They hope there is anarchy in India because they genuinely believe that they cannot win an election in India through legitimate means. They have to spread a sense of doubt, use the social media, and cause a fire to burn, regardless of the consequences, ladies and gentlemen, which reminds me of what Yunus said. Because when it was all over, when the conspirator Yunus, having joined hands with absolutely evil forces in America, came together to create an artificial crisis, to burn the country down, to destroy the country, he went and celebrated with his friend Bill Clinton, held his hand and said, Bill Clinton, thank you for letting me carry out a coup in my country. Without your help, I wouldn't have been able to make it. There are leaders today, and which is why we have to be very careful about leaders from our country who go to foreign countries and say, interfere in India. There are leaders like Yunus, and then there are people like Rahul Gandhi, inspired by Yunus, who openly invite foreign countries to operate in their country and give them an entry they should never have got. Listen to this comment of Muhammad Yunus.
It's amazing, meticulously designed thing. It's not just suddenly came, it's not like that. Very well designed. Even the leadership pattern, people don't know who the leaders.
And that's why I will only conclude by saying this: spread this video, be watchful, be careful, remember the burning episodes of Shaheen Bagh, remember the stone pelting, remember the attacks, remember, ladies and gentlemen, the number of people who were killed and murdered in Jahangirpuri, remember the young intelligence bureau officer, remember the anti-CAA violence, but more than that, always remember the fake farmers' protests when someone tried to desecrate the tricolour, ladies and gentlemen, in Red Fort. Remember all of that and remind yourself, as you watch what is happening in Nepal, that this could be but an experiment to their bigger designs on the world's greatest democracy, that is Bharat. Ladies and gentlemen, please spread the video. Let's come together. Nation first, no compromise. This is the moment we all have to be very watchful.